Welcome back, everyone. For more on the uneasy peace in Kosovo and what needs to be done to keep it, we are joined by Radmila Milentijevic. She's the former Minister of Information for the Republic of Serbia, and Joseph DioGuardi, President of the Albanian American Civic League. Thanks to both of you for joining us. What an interesting day. What interesting developments. The Russians surprised everybody by going into Pristina ahead of NATO. And now the question is, what does it mean? Is that a significant move? I want to throw the question here to you, Joseph.
It's very sad and disappointing that this could happen, especially on the day that President Clinton told the Serbian people, if you want our help, you have to get rid of Slobodan Milosevic. And here, the propaganda move by the Russians so far will have lengthened his political life in Belgrade, because that's all they're going to play on the TV. You know, the problem we got now is that you've got Russian diplomats saying one thing and Russian military people doing another.
Sure,
who can you trust?
We're getting all that conflicting information.
Remember Pearl Harbor? All the assurances we got before Pearl Harbor that everything's okay, nothing would happen. Now look what we have here. Now this is very disconcerting.
Do you think this is as significant as Joseph is saying? Because certainly the Pentagon and NATO are playing it down.
I do not think this is that significant for the simple reason the Security Council resolution talks about the United Nations peacekeeping force. It did not give Kosovo to NATO. It gave Kosovo to a supervision of under the United Nations, and the Russians are not barred from going in. Now, probably the significance of it is more symbolic than anything else. We have had the reports that the Serbs, now frightened, may leave Kosovo. Many of them may leave Kosovo. And the idea is not now to ethnically cleanse the Serbs from Kosovo, but to keep all the population who live in Kosovo to stay there and the refugees to return.
Well, to be sure, though, we can't say that the Serbs are being ethnically cleansed from Kosovo as the Albanians were ethnically cleansed from Kosovo.
No.
Certainly it's not the same thing. If they choose to leave because they're afraid, that's very different from being ethnically cleansed by
but they will, if they leave to the extent that they leave leave out of fear. Fear that they may be killed, that they may be obstructed.
I see it differently. I mean, I testified in front of the U.S. Senate May of 1998 and said that Russia should not have been part of the contact group. The Russians are blood brothers and sisters to the Serbs. That's where the Serbs came from in the 7th century A.D. And obviously they have taken the part of the Serbs and everything. Look what has happened in Bosnia. 800,000 refugees have not yet returned.
To take the flip side of that, though, what's the matter with that? They're blood brothers to the Serbs. They want to come in to reassure the Serbs that they don't have to leave out of fear.
Because there's something here that's transparent to me, at least. They're looking to carve out a zone in the north, right where the Trepčka mines are, some of the most prodigious mines in Europe for gold, chrome, coal. Hitler used these mines to build his war machine. World War II, Yugoslavia has used them for 50 years to collateralize its debts. What this is all about is to get on the ground, position themselves, and force NATO to do something they didn't want to do, and that's to give the Russians their own zone. And already they're mentioning the north. You know, we see this in nature. A lion or a cheetah takes down a big prey, and then who comes around? The street fighters, the jackals and the hyenas, and they relentlessly, persistently keep it up until maybe they will walk away from the prey. This is exactly what's happening.
Radmila, you're shaking your head.
Absolutely not. I think the United States policy here is to work with the Russians together under the auspices of the United Nations to bring peace to Kosovo and to ensure a future for all its residents.
So you doubt what Joseph is saying. They're not trying to create a zone. They're not trying to gain control of valuable resources.
I couldn't tell you what the Russians have in the back of their minds, but if the mines of Trepča, which is obviously very rich, goes to anyone, it's going to go to private capital that is going to come from the West. Without the investment of that capital coming from the West, the Trepča mine cannot compete on the world market. So it needs the infusion of huge sums of capital. This is not going to come from Russia.
But look what has happened already.
Maybe from Germany, from the United States.
Kathy, now it's interesting, we hear this, but guess who put in between $1 billion and $2 billion in 1998 into the Trepčka mines?
Who?
A Greek holding company, Mytilenos.
So they're part of NATO.
Well, wait a minute. They're part of NATO, yes, but this also gave Greece, one of our NATO allies, a conflict. And I'd like to know, why did they do that at that time? Milosevic needed the money for the war.
So you think the Russians have ulterior motives? And what you're saying basically, Joseph, is that you doubt everything that's coming out of NATO now. Everything that just came out of that Pentagon briefing about how it's just part of the process. It was a mistake. It was a misunderstanding.
Absolutely.
We'll all work together. You think that's either naive or just baldly false?
What the Russians and the Serbs understand very well, and our diplomats have to learn, is that possession is 9/10 of the law. While we were talking at Rambouillet, Milosevic was marching 40,000 troops and tanks into Kosovo. Here we're talking, President is claiming victory, and the Russians, for a whole day, nonstop, just keep going from Bosnia to Yugoslavia to Kosovo. That's not by accident. Yeltsin said he had deployed the troops.
So far, what is the damage of that, though, Joseph? What damage has been done?
All right, number one, the big damage is that the goal is to return all the Albanians. They will not come back if they sense that security is not there, and they only trust NATO at this point. They will not trust the Russians. And this is now an intimidation factor to keep them out.
Okay, interesting point. Thanks both of you for joining us today.